On the heels of Obama's plan to offer free 2-year community college, a new study reveals just how wide the higher education gap actually is. So wealthier students graduate at staggeringly higher rates than their poorer peers, and in fact the gap has doubled in the past 4 decades. So looking at some of these numbers, the percentage of students from the lowest income families, those making $34,000 a year or less earning a bachelor's degree, has inched up just 3 points since 1970, rising from 6 to 9% by 2013. Meanwhile, college completion for students from the wealthiest families has risen dramatically, climbing from 44 to 77%.
Wow.
And more specifically, while 99% of students entering college from the highest income families, those making $108,000 or more a year, graduate by 24, just 21% of students from the lowest income families finish by that age. And you can see that illustrated here on the graph that is separated by income quartile. So clearly, this is a problem.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty, leave that up for just a minute. It's pretty amazing the huge drop you see from the late 80s and early 90s.
Right.
But then it does inch back up. I'll have to think a little bit about what could have caused that 90s drop, but that is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this is just sad, but obviously we all know this, that if you have more money, you are going to have better tutors. You're going to do better on the SATs.
Exactly.
You are going to get into better colleges. You will have better teachers and then have more access to better jobs.
Yeah.
And then that continues throughout life. So I wish there was something here that I could offer some great insight to, but this is just how it is. You know, hopefully this thing that Obama wants to do with the 2 years of community college. Hopefully this evens it out a little bit, but of course access to 2 years of community college isn't the equivalent of having a lot of money so that you can go to an Ivy League school, but hopefully that does a little something there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it might not long-term necessarily change the completion rates all that much, but it'll almost certainly lead to more going and getting at least a couple of years of college, which I think, I think that you can have a legitimate debate about whether we need to have 99% of all Americans going to college and completing college. I know Jimmy Dore often says that he thinks that you can get just as much out of starting a business or starting a career without it, which is certainly true. Some of the greatest Americans did not complete college. But I cherished my time at college. I think that there is something to be learned there beyond job training in terms of training in the liberal arts. And so I want to see these numbers go up. I love that the rich are completing college at greater rates, but I want all of the quintiles to go up just as much.
I didn't know the difference between an eighth or a quarter until I went to college. And then through buying weed, I was able to figure out basic measurements.
Yes.
Right.
So you see, it's important.
And I just said quintile when I meant quartile, so I apparently missed that lesson.
I was letting that slide. Go ahead.
One of the things that they're citing as the main issue is that the Pell Grant Award has not kept up with the rising cost of college. Pell Grants covered 67% of college costs in 1975, but only 27% in 2012.
Damn.
And in fact, since 1978, college tuition fees has increased by 1,120%. Like, that is crazy.
Yeah.
So I looked into this because I went to Duke. So in between 2014 and 2015, a Duke tuition cost $63,000. That is crazy.
For 1 year.
That is crazy. Yeah, for the year 2014 to 2015, including tuition fees, room and board, books, etc. Like, that's absurd.
I mean, really think about that. Like, not just the numbers. So 63,000, is that what you said? So $63,000 a year. Now, 4 years of that. Give me some math here, Johnny. That's around
64,000.
Yeah,
that'd be 256,000.
So $256,000 to just so that you can start the process of being an adult in this country is completely bonkers.
Yeah.
And I would venture to say, I went to a state school. I went to SUNY Binghamton in New York, so it was significantly cheaper. I think at the time it was around $8,000. Even though I know some people don't have that. But I would venture to say that the average person that went to Duke at the same time that I went to Binghamton probably didn't get that much of a better education. You know, so the money, while it's obviously Duke wasn't that expensive at the time, but
yeah,
no, it's
but for me
They're
too.
not
I mean,
all equal, of course.
UConn probably for the 4 years wasn't 60,000, I would imagine. Although I still managed to get a lot of debt. I don't know how I did that. But yeah, I mean, so when we see that the Pell Grant's there, I think that our natural inclination is to say, well, they got to fund better Pell Grants. They got to fund more, which is perhaps a stopgap, but that doesn't seem like the solution. I don't think the solution is bigger Pell Grants. It's doing something about the cost of college. It hasn't kept up, not because the Pell Grants aren't growing enough, but because college is growing too fast.
Yeah.
And that's depressing. And also, we do have to bear in mind, I think many people will see this and think, well, this is because the richer people, it's partly this, but I think that they'll mainly think that it's that they're better at college because they had the better high schools, the better preparatory schools, and the tutors. And they're, just because of the pressure that they're put on them, they're just harder workers. There might be some element of that. But I imagine that a huge percentage of those who don't finish college, they're not dropping out because they're stupid. They're dropping out because they've already generated $10,000 or $20,000 or $30,000 in debt, and they just can't afford it anymore. And I don't know the rich, when they leave college, what kind of debt they have. I imagine on average they have a much greater chance that their family can help them with it. It's still a lot, though, for many of them, and that is incredibly stifling to their ability to go out and contribute to the economy, to start businesses and things like that, start the careers that they want. They feel boxed in by the system of education that we've set up, and it's depressing.
Well, despite that, I mean, on the other side of the tuition rates, there's also the issue of they might not have the ability for transportation, or maybe they have kids that, or you know, other things that come in. Maybe they have to support a full-time job at the same time. That might also contribute to why they may be dropping out.
Yeah, and even a part-time job, that is going to have an effect on your ability to study, your ability to do as well as you otherwise would.